Now coming to the next controversial area, contact tracing, home isolation and quarantine. And this is another area of extreme angst. And contact tracing, as you know, there will hardly be any guidelines available anywhere. And initially when we came up with this, we didn't really have an idea. There seemed to be no data available, no literature available, and a lot of it we had to depend on our knowledge of the incubation period of the disease and what we felt would be the way to actually go about it. So in our hospital, I haven't put slides really, and this is a tribute to the HICC team really, where we set about doing it in two ways. So what we did was we did a contact tracing, which would be primary contact tracing and also a healthcare worker contact tracing. So every positive patient in the hospital actually generated two sets of documentation, which would be we trace the pathway of the patient and check whether any healthcare worker got infected along the way. This was in the initial stages, it worked really well because the number of patients were not too many. But as the patients became quite a lot, we actually had to rapidly ramp up. And in fact, we made it such that the PPE protocols made it such that the staff would actually not get exposed. So that is the way we did it, healthcare worker contact tracing and the primary contact tracing, which was basically the person who lives with the patient in a household setting. So maybe their spouse or their roommate or their classmate, etc. So we would advise if they so they would be risk assessed depending on the kind of exposure they had, how long the exposure was, were they wearing PPE, and what was the contact duration, etc. And depending on that, we would decide on quarantine. So quarantine is when the person has been exposed to a positive patient. They're not positive themselves yet. They're quarantined, and we watch for the development of symptoms, and then take a call as to how long they need to remain quarantined in the when it comes to the spouse or household contact or whether a healthcare worker contact. Home isolation is a different concept. Home isolation is a positive patient who could technically be isolated at home with in a safe manner, making sure that he does not transmit to the other people in the household. So a lot of these terms get interchanged, but home isolation and home quarantine are extremely distinct. And that's partly the reason why we've dropped home from most of our protocols now, because we realize it's giving rise to a lot of confusion. So where did all this data come from? Initially, there was hardly any data, but this is some of the recent studies which have come out in April, May, and this is the temporal dynamics and viral shedding and transmissibility. So even if you don't look at it too much, just look at the red dots, which is your primary case that was diagnosed, and the blue dots are actually the secondary cases that were diagnosed. So when the primary contacts or rather the primary cases uh, 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 were diagnosed, basically all the people who were exposed to that case were contacted. And if they developed symptoms, they were regarded as a secondary case. So the blue dots are a secondary case. So this is a very elegant study, which is detailing the temporal dynamics and the viral shedding and transmissibility. So what they did this on 94 COVID-19 patients, and really it was 77 transmission pair. And what the data that they gleaned from this, that the infectiousness started 12 days prior to symptom onset. So that means it exactly fitted into the incubation period. Probably this was one of the early studies which told us about the incubation period, 5 to 14 days or so, and that is how they actually got it. And this is something we've come across even during our contact tracing, where we find that majority of the cases actually become positive towards the end of the second week. So infectiousness started at 12 days prior to symptom onset, and it peaked at symptom onset. And very less transmissions actually occur 7 days after exposure. 1% occur before 5 days, and 9% about 3 days before symptom onset of the secondary case. So this we are talking about the secondary case. Pre-symptomatic transmission, this study actually gave us valuable data with regard to pre-symptomatic transmission. And on the basis of this, they actually came to the conclusion that the pre-symptomatic transmission ranges anywhere from 37 to 48%. And this is one of the things which led to widespread controversy because it was very difficult to actually protect healthcare workers in a setting where pre-symptomatic transmission is so very high. What they really noted was that the viral sharing started 5 to 6 days before actually the symptoms started. But based on the previous slide that I mentioned, we actually limited our, initially we used to contact trace up to 5 days prior to exposure. Prior to the primary case becoming positive, to actually contact trace everybody. But based on all this, we actually dropped it to just 2 days prior to the person turning positive. So, very important thing to remember, contact tracing and isolation is less successful if more than 30% of the transmission occurs before symptom onset, which is exactly what we note with this particular disease. So why did we do it? In our healthcare worker setting, we have a very captive population, and we believe that we could trace more than 90% of the contacts. And this is why we went ahead with our contact tracing protocols, despite there being a lot of skepticism to the contrary, and we felt that it actually did generate a sense of confidence among the healthcare workers, reduce the anxieties, and actually, as you will see, it actually helped us to hone our PPE protocols and help us to judge compliance to our PPE protocols. So just the same thing that I mentioned here, quarantine versus isolation, what is the difference? Isolation is a confirmed case who needs to be isolated at home. Whereas quarantine is a person who's been exposed to an infected case and you're wondering whether they're going to get symptoms. So both of those are two very distinct entities. So this is the Government of India home isolation protocols here. This is asymptomatic or mild are actually eligible for home isolation. They should have, of course, they should have a home, they should have a 24-hour caregiver, they should be younger than 60 years of age, they should have no comorbidities, regular health monitoring, and they should have an approval from the clinician as such. Now, every district has modified it to suit their purposes. For example, Ranipet district does not actually allow home isolation at all. They in fact want all the positive cases to be admitted. Vellore actually just wants less than 55 years of age and asymptomatic and mild cases should actually be the ones to be offered home isolation. So every district has modified it into what they believe is the right thing to do. This is our protocol in CMC. We do offer home isolation to asymptomatic, mild ILI, age less than 45, with no chronic comorbidities. And for staff, we offer it to even those with age less than 55 years of age. These are the criteria for release or discontinuation of home isolations. And we believe that, see, the earlier ones used to be 2 negative PCRs, which thankfully was revised quickly almost 2 months ago, and that really, really helped us. So prolonged shedding can be noted up to 3 to 4 months. And there was a lot of limited testing capacity, and that actually led to revamping of the home isolation protocol. So at the moment, it is just people get discharged after 10 days of symptom onset, and if they've had no fever for 3 days. And most importantly, no testing is recommended after the home isolation period is over. This is just quarantine. Who do you put on quarantine? Any healthy person who's been exposed to a positive case. And this can be a high-risk exposure, who's had a high-risk exposure, especially a person living in the same household, direct physical contact with a COVID-19 case or with his infectious secretions without appropriate PPE for a prolonged duration. So we look at all this, risk stratify, and then take a call as to whether quarantine is required. These are all the requirements for quarantine. You should have adequate food, water, hygiene, and communication provisions during the quarantine period, so help can be sought when required. They should be taught as to how to implement infection prevention control measures in their personal space. And of course, the health of the quarantine people must, the requirements should be actually maintained. So these are the other things. It's not just keeping them somewhere and then forgetting about them. There's a lot of things that you need to take into consideration to ensure good ventilation so it doesn't spread to the other people. Proper waste management is very important, and of course, follow up general IPC practices. A maximum incubation period, like I mentioned earlier, it's 5 days to about 14 days. Initial protocols for us involved 40 days of quarantine. Since then, we've been able to rapidly bring it down, depending on the way our situation evolved. Okay, so how do we discontinue people from quarantine? The maximum is up to 14 days, but really, unless of course they become symptomatic in between, in which case they get tested and they can report early. In some cases, when there's been a manpower shortage, we actually recommend day 8 of testing, day 7 testing, and then they report to work day 8 if that thing has been actually negative. So total healthcare worker exposures. So as I said, our contact tracing protocols have helped us to hone our various PP protocols. So this is just our data. As you can see, these are the daily healthcare worker contacts. And as you can see, they're rapidly coming down. Initially, there was a lot of problem for us to get them to agree to a particular code of conduct. And this is household exposures, of course, remain the same. As you know, the infection was in the community. So we did expect that that would actually still be high. But the workplace exposure remarkably came down. And this meant a lot of effort on our part to actually put together the reasons for quarantine, sending letters out to department heads, giving them the reason, mentioning what they need to take as preventive actions to ensure that this did not happen again. So as you can see, the workplace exposure gradually reduced remarkably. It reflected an enormous behavior change based on what we did as a result of contact tracing. I haven't mentioned what it is, the various situations. We have a lot of slides actually, so I didn't want to put it in. But the majority of the situations involved actually meal times. And as you know, all the messes have been closed. So because the mess has been closed, people have been eating in their room. And of course, eating is a social activity. So a lot of people ended up eating in their rooms or having coffee together. And that would be a prolonged duration without a mask, talking to each other, and invariably led to a lot of people becoming quarantined. So it required a lot of effort on our part to continually educate people, continually request the heads of the department to educate their employees to not indulge in such practices, or at least maintain a distance of more than 2 meters if they really did want to have a meal together. So our quarantine guidelines changed as we generated data, and this really helped us. Based on that, we were able to actually, what we noted was we were able to follow up people on surgical masks, on N95 masks. We were able to follow them up to see how many of them went on to actually becoming secondarily infected. And based on that, we were able to confidently not quarantine anybody who wore a surgical mask. And we used this data to help us hone our protocols. So contact tracing was an effective measure for us, despite all the skepticism about it all being there in the community, whether we needed to bother doing all this. But we used it as an opportunity because we could trace more than 90% of the contacts, and we used this as an opportunity to revise our policy.